You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? Look no further. The team at Dodge Media Productions has 20 years of experience as podcast listeners and observing the industry and 8 years experience in podcast production. We can help you take your podcast from idea to fruition, and we'll make the process seamless and easy. We'll help you with everything from recording and editing to hitting the charts on Apple Podcasts. So what are you waiting for? Contact us today and let's get started. DodgeMediaProductions.com.
Today we're going to talk about Reminders of Him. This is a film that we saw the trailer for quite some time ago, and even though it was obvious that it was dramatic and maybe more like a romance, but definitely some feels were in the distance, I was interested in this film. And I will give credit to the cinematographer, the whole camera department, because I think in the trailer even, the visuals come through and it looked like a film I would be interested in. And it's weird to say that you would jettison a film because what it looked like. I don't think it's that. I think it's just it was so gorgeously shot that it caught my attention, even though from the trailer I knew somebody wasn't going to make it out of Act 1.
Yeah, they spoiled that part for us in the trailer. Yeah, and for me, I was just going to say, put Lorelai Gilmore, and I realized that the actor and the character have the same initials. Put Lauren Graham in anything, and I'll give it a watch. I guess if you put her in a horror film, I maybe would skip that one. But when I saw her, I was like, okay, I definitely want to see this movie when we saw those trailers. Mm-hmm. And so I was in. In addition to Lauren Graham, they had Bradley Whitford.
Yeah, which I love from West Wing.
So to me, I feel like if you have Lauren Graham and Bradley Whitford in your film, you lead with them. But they weren't very present in the first part of the film.
No, but they were definitely in the trailer. They used that iconography to get butts in seats.
And at first in the film, through about the first half, I thought, well, this is kind of a little odd. Why do you have those big name talented stars and not use them a bit more? But it made sense as we moved our way through the film. The lead is this young lady by the name of Micah Monroe. Mm-hmm. I don't believe I've seen her in anything before, didn't recognize her name. I think she did a very good job. Obviously, she was cast because she needed to be very pretty. That's the kind of character that this is. However, I thought for that role, she landed it pretty perfectly, in my opinion, of somebody who is just trying to get their life back together after making a very serious mistake. So for me, there's this fine line between if you go too hard into the pitiful, then it seems kind of schmaltzy, or it can seem like a TV movie. And if you don't get enough sympathy, then that character just seems like a callous butthead and the viewer doesn't care. I think that's a difficult kind of balance to pick.
I'm interested that you chose the word mistake, because I think we have enough, I feel like we have enough evidence that it was an accident, because they left it ambiguous enough whether she needed to be prosecuted, or at least, I guess a jury or a judge found her guilty because she served time. So there must have been some cause for it to be, but isn't it, I thought we've talked about this before, and if you accidentally kill somebody and it was truly an accident, are there reasons why they wouldn't prosecute you?
Oh, of course.
And so 7 years, and I can't remember if they said the charge, if it was like it probably wasn't a misdemeanor, because at one point they talk about we don't hire felons. So it was a felony charge, I believe.
Yeah, and I think misdemeanors are maximum sentence of 6 months, maybe. There's a limit. That was definitely a felony charge.
So, but it'd be curious how it was represented in the book. I felt that there was enough information. She did imbibe in an altering substance, but when she imbibed, it was daylight. And when she was driving, it was nighttime. They had a picnic, so she had other stuff in her system. So time had passed,
But also they show us that there was, she hit a pothole, and so somebody stone cold sober, could the same thing have happened and had the same result? So I guess when you said she made a mistake, yes, you probably should not imbibe on a substance that alters your alertness when you're not in a safe place, like at home or you're camping, or where there's a lot more time to have that wear off.
Regardless of substances, if you are not of the appropriate mental capacity to operate the motor vehicle, you should not. That was, to me, the mistake, regardless whether it was you smoked something, you drank something, you're too tired because you didn't sleep.
Sure.
Whatever it is, if you're not safe, it is a mistake to take the controls. Even if you are completely at your mental best, but the conditions are dangerous, like, I don't know, maybe a hailstorm or something. Sure. If you don't have the skills, you shouldn't do it. So that, to me, was the mistake. They established in the movie, I believe, that her penalty was because she pled guilty.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And I think
I forgot that part.
They
Thank
implied in the movie that had she pled not guilty or fought the conviction, she maybe would have gotten off, or maybe would have gotten a reduced sentence. And I thought it was interesting because I tracked that early on in the film. Why would you just kind of roll over? But then she explained that she was in a grief-stricken state of mind.
She was grief-stricken, and she didn't know she was pregnant. She said that she wouldn't have done it.
Correct.
She wouldn't have pled guilty if she knew she was pregnant.
We did the math on the age of the girl relative to the story, and it seems like she got out early.
Yes.
Some time served, perhaps. And I think this is a really interesting story, the setup. Now, I have to put a footnote here. I did look up the novel on which this is based on Goodreads, and some people savaged the novel and they don't like the author, Colleen Hoover. I don't know if it's a 50 Shades of Grey thing where everyone hates it, or if it's just like Nickelback where it's fun to hate it. I don't know. Haven't read the book, haven't read her work.
Right.
But this is a very interesting premise to me. Because from one direction, one side of the coin, you say this person is responsible for the death of another person, and thus, curses, they're horrible. And then the other side of the coin, you say this person is also a victim of circumstance. Apparently in the novel, the other people go after that character, Kenna is her name, much harder than they do in the movie. And we talked a little bit about this after we saw the film, that normally when you read a book and then you watch the movie, you're like, it's not as good as the book. In this case, from reading the reviews of the book and having watched the movie, I think the filmmaker addressed some of the concerns that readers had. And that's one of them, is I feel like it would have been difficult for us to believe there's any sort of happy ending if in Acts 1 and 2, the parents go hard after this person. And they did kind of go a little harder after her than I would have expected.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough because not ever having been in that position, I hope I never have to be in that position.
I should hope not, yes.
Touch wood. That what I did appreciate, sorry, this may be a bit of a spoiler. I did appreciate that when she showed some contrition and some that she was also hurting, that they didn't portray those parents as unforgiving or unwavering. And I think that that's a good message, that people make mistakes, and if they show true contrition and they show that they are very sorry for their mistakes, that we need to allow for kind of, it's not that you just hand wave it away and it's not there, but there can be a place of compassion and kind of coming back together. And I appreciated that it's not that those parents aren't still grieving. It's not that those parents aren't always going to probably look at her and think of this, but that they don't have to be like hate-filled, nasty people for the rest of their lives, for their own sake as well, and for the sake of their grandchild.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that for me is an additional but important complicating factor, is the granddaughter, for two ways, right? In one, as grandparents, if you want to see your granddaughter, you need to have some sort of workable relationship with the mother, of course, but also for the granddaughter as well, to put that on her, right? If you are day in, day out cursing Kenna and talking about how horrible she is, the daughter is raised with that. She's baked in that kind of stew of hatred, and it affects her as well.
Yeah.
But that is an interesting thing about, as a parent, would you be able to separate those two things? Because I think it's normal for the parents to be very upset at the person who is responsible for a death. That would
of your child.
be natural. Yeah. But on the other hand, as we said, is it a case where I wouldn't even call it negligence. I think it's maybe there is a bad choice made, as I said. If you're not up to the driving task, you shouldn't be driving.
Right. But also kind of age appropriate. Not to let her off the hook, but somewhat age appropriate.
Yes, I thought the filmmaker did a very good job of making her sympathetic without letting her off the hook. And kind of what I was talking about, Micah Monroe's performance, that to me is a razor's edge to navigate, and I felt like the film did a very good job of that with the performance and the other things. And one of the things I thought that was done well in the film is the consequence of this, in that she gets out of prison and she's unable to get
employment,
a job at all, let alone like a great paying job. And the consequence of that is shown, that she lives in a crappy apartment. And that the people in the apartment complex are not bad people.
Right.
They're poor people.
Also, yep.
And like every human being, they have good relationships and they have grumpy relationships. They get together to celebrate Mother's Day. So they're just people. And that also brings up, I don't know if this is in the book, but in the movie, one of the employees at, I call it the Piggly Wiggly, but I think it's the grocery barn or grocery something, where she does get a job, is an actress named Monica Myers, who appears to have Down syndrome. And I say appears to because, much credit to the filmmakers, it was a character whose actor happened to have Down syndrome, it appears. It wasn't a character with Down syndrome. And I thought that was fantastic, that they cast an actor who could have been checking the Benetton box of, oh, we're going to get our disability DEI credit. And they didn't go that road.
Yeah.
They just had
They didn't
an
hang a
actor
lampshade on it.
in a role.
She was just another character.
And I was very pleased to see that in there. There was a couple of these characters, the main kind of love interest, Tyreek Withers, and then this fellow Nicholas Duvernay that we thought might be related to the director but isn't.
Not the director of this film, but the director,
Ava DuVernay,
Yeah.
not the director of this film. Both of them appear to have some African heritage at some point in their background.
Right.
And that is never brought up. That is never an issue. The fact that the character of Ledger, which is an odd name, I will admit, grew up
Kinda
friends
cool, though.
with Scotty. At no point did the parents ever mention his race or apparent race. And I thought that was actually pretty cool, that you just cast these actors and we didn't spend any time trying to justify whether this person looks like what you would have expected or not. And it reminded me of Dax Shepard's comment on going to see Hamilton. The actors disappeared into the role. He very quickly was no longer thinking, does this person look like...
Jefferson wasn't black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I felt like this film did a great job of truly being diverse in the sense that it didn't try too hard. It wasn't
It was a
preaching
diverse
at
cast
you.
without the giant like neon arrow pointing
at it. Now, we mentioned this character of Roman, it says. We mentioned this character of Roman played by Nicholas Duvernay. I thought that guy was great every scene he was in.
Yes.
I really enjoyed his performance. But the guy who played Ledger, that often can be difficult for me to really like that character, you know, Edward or what have you in Twilight. The brooding male handsome lead, to me, often falls flat. But this guy did a fantastic job, I felt like.
Well, and somebody brought up, because I didn't watch many interviews, but the couple that I watched with Ledger and Micah, is that what you said her name was?
Yeah, Tyreek Withers and Micah Monroe.
Okay. they said, what a tricky role for Micah because the movie is told linearly, easy for me to say. It goes back and forth. It jumps to fill out the story and to let us know about Scotty, the character that dies. No spoiler, it happens.
That's in the trailer.
Yeah, it's not only in the trailer, but it's like we learned that in the first.
Superfan Chris, that's in the trailer.
So Micah had to basically carry out a love story with two people. Almost
You're right.
simultaneously as they're telling this story. And I don't know how it was shot, if they shot like all of Ledger's scenes and then all of Scotty's scenes or whatever. But that character had to sustain a relationship with these two male, I guess, supporting or lead characters, not quite simultaneously, but similarly. And so they said, what a tricky thing, because that usually doesn't happen, I would say, in most films. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, without it being a love triangle, which it really wasn't.
Yes, it wasn't a love triangle at all. And so I thought that was an interesting comment, but I thought she did a great job because I believed that she truly loved Scotty when she was with Scotty. And then we have to understand as the audience that when she is released from prison, yes, it is now. We said it was supposed she served 7. She was convicted of 7 years. Let me say that, but we can tell by the math that she probably served 5 to 6.
I would say 4 to 5.
Because they say that the little girl's 5. If you throw in like a year for gestation, we're right about that. So she served 5 to 6. So she's 5 to 6 years into her grief of Scotty. So yes, she is very much. It's still very new. She's still probably grieving him. But she's probably longing to feel loved and to love again. So it's believable and understandable when she falls in love with Ledger.
Yes, we actually both questioned, and I even whispered to you in the theater, I was confused at first how, if he was Scotty's best friend, he would not have ever seen her and recognized her when they first
and then
meet.
Almost immediately after you whisper that, they explain it.
Right. So I figure the director and editor were on the same page with me. They're going to need to know this.
Yeah.
But what I mentioned earlier is I think you needed to cast an actress that looked really pretty across the bar to sell that when she walks into the bar and he turns and sees her, that he would be attracted to her just from that appearance itself, because they don't have that background, they don't have the interaction. That is, in human history, there have been several times when human beings have seen each other and been excited about merely the physical, but I think that it's almost like the gaze. It doesn't work unless she comes across on screen like a person that would catch his eye when he is in the bar at work. So I thought that was also difficult because in other roles you maybe are doing different things, but in this one you have to, as I said, balance that grief because as we have seen from watching documentaries as well as some dramas, prison is not a place you go to get better psychologically.
Right.
Generally, it makes things worse.
Right.
So here she is, she's grieving, she's in prison, not a lot of fun, not a great opportunity for her to work on herself.
She's almost grieving 2 people because Scotty died, and then we find out that the baby was born early, and so she was supposed to get 2 or 4 days with
like
the baby
of
in the
mommy
hospital.
time.
Yeah, and because of the baby being born early and needing to go to a NICU, she didn't get that. They whisked that baby away, and in the movie, I believe they show she didn't even get to hold the baby. And so she's really grieving 2 people because she did not get to bond and connect with that baby girl that she just had.
Right.
That was a part of someone she really, really loved.
Any parent, if your child was born and then they take it away and you never get to see them again. Now, I don't know the specifics of family law or how things work in Colorado or they were Wyoming. It was Wyoming. But we did wonder that she wouldn't have been able to see the daughter at all during that time. But it's possible if you're convicted of a felony, and maybe because the felony was related to the child's father, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's when you, just assuming you buy that premise, here's a person who has not seen their daughter for years, right? So that is also another loss that she's grieving.
And I just want to circle back really quick because you were talking about the attraction in the bar. So this took place in Laramie, Wyoming, which they portray. I don't know the population of Laramie. We're not going to do a fact check right now.
Right.
But it appeared to be small. And so I could see him being intrigued because she would have been a new face.
Absolutely.
It looked like a small place. Like you would recognize, oh, this is somebody. Even if you didn't know everyone in town, you're like, this feels like a new person in town. So I think that could have attributed to that. I do wonder because from the moment the parents hear that she's out and she is trying to see the child, they get a restraining order. So it's possible that Scotty's parents didn't facilitate, like they would have needed to take the baby or the toddler to the jail. And if they are grieving and upset, and maybe the courts don't force them to do that. So that could be another reason why she never got to see the child.
Like custodianship, perhaps it was their choice as to whether to take the child to the prison, and they could choose no.
Right.
I don't know if this is in the novel, but I'll give credit at least to the filmmaker for this. One thing that they did very, very right, in my opinion, is there is a scene where Ledger intercepts the mother and the granddaughter to prevent them from encountering the character of Kenna, where he runs up to Lauren Graham's character and says, turn around, get in the car. And instead of the normal thing where she stands there and has an argument for 5 minutes and then the bad thing happens, she turns around with the kid, gets back in the car.
That makes you so mad when they don't do, like when they just go, what? Why? What are you talking about?
Huh? Who are you?
Like livid.
Where are we? Like, that drives me nuts. So credit to that. I mentioned earlier the cinematography, and I actually also want to give a shout out to the art department.
Yeah, I was gonna.
So they shot it, I would say it was a classically gorgeous shot. They used shallow depth of field where it was appropriate. They used a lot of saturation, beautifully shot. Everything was in focus. The framing was proper. All kinds of goodness on that. But the reason I want to throw the art department in there as well is there is talk about yellow being her favorite color. And if you pay attention, there is yellow everywhere.
Yeah.
They really leaned into their color palette. And
the little girl's favorite color.
Yes, the little girl's favorite color. But if you look throughout the rest of the film, there's yellow in all kinds of other places too. This is one of the cases where I say the job is done right when people don't notice it.
Yeah.
And this is a case where I was like, they intentionally colored all of those scenes, those sets and the clothes.
Yeah.
And it was brilliantly done because it wasn't ridiculously over the top. It doesn't look like it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
But it is just perfectly done. I loved everything about how they did the production design on this film. The one nitpick I have is he drives a battered old pickup.
If we had our driving review, you'd...
Orange. Well, Mopar is orange. They could have had a Dodge Power Wagon. Would have made more sense. They put him in a Ford. I don't know.
Was it orange because he then went on to play for the Denver Broncos? And so was he, like, was the Broncos his favorite team? And so he bought...
Sure, it could be.
An orange truck, or had it painted orange.
Hollywood loves blue and orange.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But I'm just saying, if you ask anyone what, like, 70s era vehicle is painted orange, they're going to think Mopar. Orange was not a common Ford color. Mopar established orange.
I think only your car nerds would know that.
Yeah, okay, well, give me a shout out on my car nerds.
Okay, so back to art design. I wanted to definitely give a shout out to production design and set design because what I loved, and to your point, I think they did, and I was talking to someone who also saw this movie who enjoyed it, and when I brought this up was like, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. Like, you notice these things, and this is kind of our sickness that we do notice these things, and I don't know if all audiences do. But what I did love is she moves into this apartment, and we she literally has a backpack on her.
Right.
And so you figure she can't have too many clothes even in the backpack, especially
Correct.
leaving jail, because it's not
Correct.
like you get to go shopping. And so, first of all, wardrobe, she wears the same clothes over and over, which I love that when they stick to the character. When you see in movies somebody in every scene. Now, if you're talking about Kate Hudson in a movie where she works for Vogue or whatever.
Right. Devil Wears Prada 2.
Yeah, you expect to never see a repeat outfit again.
Exactly.
But someone who has a backpack who's been in jail for 5 years, you expect them to wear the same shirt over and over and over because they can't afford to buy. So slowly she does start to get new stuff, but you figure it's because, she went to a thrift store, or it was
Right.
after a week or two when she got a paycheck. But also the apartment. The apartment stays very sparse at first. But as you get into the movie, and they don't even put a lampshade on it, but at one point she picks up this milk crate kind of thing.
Right.
And she carries it home. And she had been gifted a cat. So I'm thinking, oh, she's making like a bed for a cat, or is she going to make some, what's it called? A litter box out of it? Or I'm
Okay.
trying to figure out, not ever owning a cat. The minute she got the cat, I was concerned about now she's got to go buy litter and a litter box.
Geez, yeah.
I'm
That's
immediately
like a white
distracted.
elephant. Yeah. Agreed.
So when I see her pick up this crate, I immediately think, oh, okay, she's going to use it to get something
Right.
for the cat. And it turns out, and once again, this is never discussed. You just see it in the back of a scene. She made a coffee table out of it. And so it's like, oh, that's why. Because I think it was bothering me.
Right.
You see her pick up this milk crate.
Where's it going with the
What
milk
is she
crate?
doing with the milk crate? And then you just see it later. And I just love that
Right.
type of storytelling, that she was creating a home, but she was doing it in a very scrappy kind of way, literally finding scraps on her way home of how could she better her apartment, her life. So that shows you that she has pride in her stuff, even if it's found objects, dollar
Sure.
store objects,
Sure.
just stuff on the budget. Like she didn't hang up curtains, but somehow she got this scarf and she hung it up over the kitchen window to kind of create some privacy. Like it was just, I liked that because it told you something about, it was the show don't tell that we always talk about. You showed that Kenna cares about her space and wants to improve her life, but is doing so responsibly. She doesn't go to the department store and spend her whole first paycheck on stuff for her apartment,
Right.
So I nod to the set designer and production designer and art
Right.
department who did all that stuff.
So I do have one slight nit on that, is what I was assuming is you probably, when you go into prison, they take whatever clothes you're wearing and put them in the bag,
And then you get them back, yeah.
and then you get them back. But if you have clothing from prison, it's probably not particularly nice. It's just functional.
They're almost like scrubs.
And
It's
so they
like-
have a little sight gag when the guy comes over and she has to quickly clean her apartment, and she knocks this frilly pink bra off the countertop so he wouldn't see it. A common gag, we've seen that time and again. The reason it bumped me is I was like, where did she get the frilly pink bra? Because she probably wasn't wearing that on the time she went into prison and wouldn't have got one in prison. So that was a thing, and it stuck out because so much of what they did was realistic. And I think a lot of times in TV shows and movies, when they show people who are struggling financially, they glam them up. And they showed this was a realistic kind of low budget apartment. And I think without going too deep into it, they showed her, like you said, grabbing a crate. She was actually struggling to make ends meet. This was a real thing for her. Eating food at the bar or what have you. This was I felt a realistic portrayal in the context of this is a positive, uplifting film. It's not trying to be a documentary or something like that. So I thought they did a fantastic job of showing the difference. And then you cut to the home with the daughter, and obviously the grandparents are later in life and they're doing okay financially, and it's such a nice home, and there's that contrast to where she's living, right? And then the guy he has a home that's being built, and So I felt like they had landed all of that, and again, credit to production design, that those things felt realistic to me
I would agree.
for the environment that they were in. They had a decent amount of the landscape style shots. If you're in Wyoming, you gotta
I
have
totally
some,
believe that this was filmed in like Montana or Wyoming. It looked like the Rocky Mountains, and I think maybe it was the Canadian Rockies because it was shot in Alberta, Canada.
Right. And we had asked the question, or I guess I had asked you the question, we had the discussion about how is it cheaper to shoot in Alberta than in Wyoming? You would think in Wyoming it would be very cheap to shoot, but I don't know how that works out. So the line producer from the movie, feel free to give me a call. I'd love to chat about how that made sense, because I'm sure it did. That's why they did it. But that's also nice to see, because we do see a lot of shows that are set in cities for obvious reasons, right? If you're going to make a movie, you start right outside your front door. And a lot of the film has been in New York and LA. So this was nice to, I think, see a small town not portrayed as a bunch of hayseeds that hate dancing, but just kind of a normal environment, normal town with people having problems and dealing with them. So that was good. Really gorgeous, though. I think I keep coming back to it. I really enjoyed watching the film. Credit to the cinematographer, who I don't know their name off. Boy, I feel bad that I didn't look this up ahead of time. No research done on the podcast, as our listeners know. We just kind of wing it. I'm not known for my research here, which is funny because I'm normally Mr. Wikipedia.
I know.
So, yeah, there you go. What did you think about the soundtrack of this?
I remember enjoying it. There were some fun songs because she, and I didn't know where they were going with this, but then we get it explained to us, and I think this is kind of funny. So you had mentioned yellow was the little girl's favorite color. And I've always loved the Coldplay song Yellow, but didn't know that that was the title.
Oh, okay.
And so I recently was listening to an interview with a notable person that had their lives pretty much ruined while listening to the song Yellow.
Coldplay, yeah.
And if you want that context, go ahead and email me and I'll share. But to not derail us, so we find out later why Kenna does not like music. Because we find out later why Kenna doesn't like music. And so I thought that was an interesting, I guess, plot point.
Yep.
So I enjoyed the use of music and sound in that way. And then kind of when you get that payoff at the end, I found it enjoyable, or like entertaining, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, they had, I think, a cover of a song you would recognize, and then if I remember correctly, I think it was the Noah Cyrus song, who is Miley's younger sister.
The credit scene.
Yeah, over the credits. And it was kind of, it wasn't country and western. It was maybe a little more close to folk, I'd say. I thought it matched the tone of the film very well.
Yeah, I thought, and there's a funny gag where when she's explaining to him why she doesn't like music, this isn't giving anything away, because all songs are sad, and then all the songs that they play on the radio are sad songs.
Right.
And of course, all songs aren't sad, but I thought it was a funny kind of gag to use diegetic music within the storyline, which diegetic means the characters are hearing the song as well, and then non-diegetic is when only the audience is hearing the song.
Yes, and I don't believe this film did it, but there is a technique where non-diegetic becomes diegetic or vice versa.
Yes,
which
oftentimes
is clever when it's done well.
Yes, oftentimes when I see it done, which this will be a good example for the audience, is the movie is opening with a non-diegetic song, and the audience is the only one hearing it, and then it will be like transition into like usually a car. But sometimes it'll be like in an apartment or something, and the character is listening to that same song and will either turn it off, or that lets you realize that, oh, they were listening to that song, not just the audience.
And in this particular case, I feel like that makes some degree of sense. It was a fun gag, but it also, I bet you could, if you were in a vehicle that was old enough to only have a radio with the push button presets, which we remember because we're old timers. I bet you could, if you pressed them all, get a bunch of sad songs if you weren't careful. Because it's the joke about if you play a country song backward, he gets his dog back and his wife back and his truck back. Yeah. So this was a bit of a sleeper for me. As I said, I really liked the cinematography. I feel like the trailer showed Tim Ives is a cinematographer. I just found that.
Go Tim.
Did my research. I felt like that really was what caught me in, but I liked it more than I thought. I was afraid it was going to be a tearjerker, and I don't feel like I would call it a tearjerker. It had some feels.
I definitely cried, especially at the end, which won't go any further, but I can't say it because it'll kind of spoil. But I would have liked to have added some dialogue for Kenna near the end, and I was talking to somebody else and they agreed with me. There was a moment where I thought she should express some gratitude, and I just was like yearning to hear her say it in this one pivotal moment. And she didn't do it. It wasn't that she was being rude, but I just thought it would be a nice thing. If I were to be the writer, I would have added it. I think that, I don't know if I had super high expectations. I don't think I had low expectations for this film. I thought it might be a little bit more schmaltzy, or a little bit, the trailer kind of gave a vibe as it could have been a little bit like maybe preachy, or a little, there's another word I want, but I can't come up with. Anyway, and I did not feel that at all. I thought it was such good storytelling. Mm-hmm. I mean, we both came out of it just absolutely loving it and so happy that we had seen it. And I probably will watch it again when it comes on a streaming service because it was such an enjoyable film.
The director is one Vanessa Caswell. And if
Very well done.
Remember correctly, this is her feature film debut.
Oh, awesome. So I hope she does more because
good work.
She's a wonderful storyteller.
Yeah, worked out well. And as well as the main actors, I thought were fantastic.
I hope to see them as well. All of them, like you were saying, the Duvernay kiddo and who played Ledger and who played Kenna. I would watch anything they were in.
Right.
And the little girl, she was pretty good too.
Yeah, she didn't have as much maybe to do, but that's generally pretty good. One of the things that we often complain about is when small children are written that speak like adults. Mm-hmm. And I think that becomes more of a problem when you give them more screen time. It's harder to write interesting dialogue. We recently watched another film in which you referred to one of the child characters as just screaming all the time, which maybe that's another way to solve the problem of how do you get screen time for children? Well, this one is going to scream and that one is going to...
I would have drowned that kid. And I don't believe in violence against children, but...
Make an exception for that character.
Gosh, she was so annoying.
Yeah. And in this case, absolutely well done. I didn't look up the budget on this one. I would be surprised nowadays if it was less than 10 mil because it seems like movie budgets are very expensive. But I felt like this had a little bit of an independent film.
Yeah, very much.
I think the number of sets and the number of actors, it just felt like a smaller film. But this is totally in my wheelhouse. I love this.
Yeah, it was
it's
really
a story
good.
about characters and people dealing with some deep emotions, and it's not a big sweeping thing.
And I think too, not a clean-cut issue. Like we said at the beginning, we were talking about there is this like gray area of, I think if she went out and got hammered and then like got behind the wheel and was partying, like it's so much easier to not like her character. But there was this, was it an accident? Was it not that there's ever concern that she did it on purpose, but was there negligence, I guess. And it very much, it left enough of that gray area that you kind of felt for everybody. It wasn't so clean cut. Like, oh, she did bad. She needed to be punished. She shouldn't have her child. Like, it was enough of a sympathetic, you felt bad for everybody involved. You felt bad for the little girl who didn't get to see her mom for the last 5 years. Obviously, we felt bad for Scotty, who his life was taken out early. Yeah. You felt bad for the parents. Even Ledger, like you felt bad. It had to be extremely uncomfortable for him if he was attracted to her, and if he's like, hey, I would like to get to know this girl, but oh my gosh, it's my best friend's girlfriend. Like that had to be a little, and they did try to kind of squash it because they both knew this isn't a good idea. But the heart wants what the heart wants. Really well done. Everybody did their job, and kudos. Bravo.
Bravo. Any last thoughts on reminders of him?
If you missed it in theaters, definitely check it out. I think I've heaped praise, so my opinion of this film has been made clear in this podcast.
It might still be in some theaters, but if not, hopefully it will transition to streaming pretty quickly and you can watch it at home. I think this benefits from a bigger screen because of the gorgeous visuals from Tim Ives and his department.
Right, but definitely don't sleep on it if it comes to a streaming service. If you happen to be in the Portland area, this Saturday, please come to the Brookwood Library in Hillsboro, Oregon, because we are showcasing 5 of our short films. It is a free event. All are welcome. Most films are G-rated, is what I've been saying. And if you want more information, you can reach out to me at Christy@DodgeMediaProductions.com. There is a Facebook event if you want to see more. It's this Saturday, April 11th, from 5 to 7 at the Brookwood Library in the multi-purpose room. And it is a free event, no tickets needed. Just please come on down and join us. We want to celebrate not only our films and the work we've done, but the wonderful, wonderful cast and crew that we have been so privileged to work with, some of who will be there. And we just want to kind of have a big celebration, say thank you. And we'll be featuring Papa Floyd's mini donuts that we both are big fans of.
There will be 100 mini donuts to start with until I get at them.
Yes. Especially their chocolate covered, which
Yeah.
are amazing and will probably disappear. But if we have some left over, I won't be sad.
Like our film sets, we feed people well.
Yes, we do.
So
Come
yes.
on down.
And never forget, Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christy and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to DodgeMediaProductions.com. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.